All right, I'd like to call this meeting to order. We do a salute to the flag when we start our, and the poles are outside, so we'll face to the right. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, this is an organizational meeting. Everybody has a copy of the agenda for the night. As open forum, would anyone like to address the school committee? Once again, one last and only time, would anyone like to address the committee? If not, we'll close this portion of the meeting at 7:50. We'll move now into organizational matters. At this particular point, we'll take nominations for chair, vice chair, secretary, and auditors. Any nominations for chair?
I nominate Dean Mazzarella.
Okay, is there a second? And a second? Any other nominations?
I'd like to nominate Eileen Griffin.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, first and a second for Eileen. Is there anyone else? Okay, we'll vote on the first for Dean Mazzarella. All in favor, signify in the usual manner. Those opposed? Okay, and then on Eileen, all in favor, signify in the usual manner. Those opposed? Okay. And now we'll move on to, so Secretary, will note that it was a 5-4 vote.
Yes, and 4-5.
And now we'll move on to vice chair. Are there any nominations for vice chair?
To nominate Greg Thomas.
Greg Thomas.
I second.
That was done by Josh, seconded by Sal.
I'd like to nominate Eileen Griffin.
Okay,
Second.
and a motion, a second by Eileen, for Eileen Griffin. All right, now we'll take the vote. First is for Greg. All in favor? Those opposed? And now for Eileen, all in favor? Those opposed? So it'll be a 5-4 on each end.
Yep.
Okay, we're gonna now move on to secretary. I have a nomination for secretary of the school committee.
Can I nominate Brandon?
Brandon
I'd second
Robbins, and we have a second. Any other nominations? If not, we'll close nominations. All in favor? Those opposed? Congratulations, Brandon. Auditors? We can leave that open, but that requires coming in and signing off on warrants. So warrants-
Usually it's folks on the
Okay.
finance committee.
So we'll do that later. And then all of these committees. So what I'd like to do, and I don't have any prepared agenda, but what I'd like to do is to get us back focused on some of the things on finance. So rather than have a finance committee, and maybe down the road we will do a finance committee, what I prefer to do is have the whole committee act as the finance committee. It's just too big of an issue for us to, send it off to 2 or 3 people. But I think it's more important that we use our time as a whole committee to work on the finances. And then later on, as we become acclimated with the process, we have 4 new members, then maybe we move towards a finance committee. But I think it's important enough, the dollars that we get, I think are important enough that we should all be in on those meetings with the superintendent and her staff.
So we still would, at some point then, need to
Elect
auditors. And
Correct.
generally speaking, there's 3 of them.
Yes.
So just to.
In the meantime-
It's gotta be people who are available.
So in the meantime, we can have 2. Is there anybody here that is available to come in and sign off? This will be temporary until we get to that next step of choosing, because I wasn't prepared tonight to put together committees. So Josh would be available, okay? Anybody else can come in?
Brandon.
I'm happy.
And Brandon could come in and sign. So that takes care of that on a temporary basis, and we'll work from there. So our next full meeting is gonna be on that Tuesday. And remember, I think we've got some backing up to do. We did things towards the end of the year with the other school committee. We have 4 new members, and I think it's important to bring everybody up to speed. So what was maybe the goals and objectives for the last school committee might not necessarily be the new goals and might not be the goals and objectives for a new school committee. And I think we've got to sort of back up a little bit before we move too far forward. So that's why I think it's important that the whole committee acts as the finance committee, and that we spend our time at our meetings working on those. Those are the nuts and bolts of what happens and what drives the school system, and curriculum and achievement is the dollars. And so I think that's important. At our next meeting, which I believe is the Tuesday after Martin Luther King Day, what I would like to do is have, unless there are other things that the superintendent needs voted on, action items for that night, what I would like to do is again back up and get back to the, take a step back and go back to the Recovery Act money and go back and see where we've spent that money thus far, and then what the plan is going forward. And I think, again, having 4 new members, it's critical to have that American Rescue Plan money, to have a good sense of where we've spent that money, what are the eligible areas. And I know some have had conversations with the superintendent about this. Some took sort of boot camp for new school committee members. I'm not sure if they talked about that.
Yeah.
But at our next meeting, it's roles, responsibilities, what the job is of the school committee, and spend time on the American Rescue Plan so that we fully understand what it is, what our job is as it relates to the American Rescue Plan and the funding, where we've spent the money, and then what the plan is to go forward. Is that okay? I mean, it's just gonna allow us to spend more time on those items, which I think to bring everybody up to speed is important. And it won't be too long where we'll be working on the budget. It's gonna seem like, tomorrow, and all of a sudden, all this budget information is gonna be at
So to
us.
clarify,
Yes,
there'll be a school committee meeting, finance will be on every agenda,
yes.
it sounds like, and
Yes.
we'll plan, there will be a longer meeting because we'll wrap finance into that.
Well, I think it's a little bit of bringing everybody up to speed as to where we are on finance. And I think that's why there won't be a longer meeting, because there aren't gonna be other things on the agenda unless they need to be voted on, action items.
Right, but that's school committee meetings,
Right,
right?
there's other kinds of information we need to make sure this
There's the
district is running.
presentations, there's
Right.
everything else.
And you know what, maybe there's the opportunity to have the superintendent's report sooner in the meeting. And anybody that wants to come can have a superintendent's report, and you can expand on that. That's a good way of doing that, kind of like a workshop meeting where people can come in and it's less formal. Maybe that's the opportunity. But I really want to make sure that we're bringing everybody up to speed before all of a sudden there's this, hey, we got to vote on the budget. I want to work our way towards this with everyone understanding, sort of, and so that we're bringing everybody forward for the next 2 years. We just passed goals and objectives for the superintendent. We got 4 new members. It's like time is a little bit up. We haven't set our goals and objectives for the committee, but we just had that company come in last time at our last meeting, the last 2 meetings ago, to talk about the work that they've been doing in the school system. Yet we have 4 new members. My feeling is, as the chair, we've got to bring everybody up to speed and get everybody ready for budget season, whatever. So that's why I think we need to spend our time on finance and then work our way towards other things. But I'll work with the superintendent to see what needs to get on the agenda. I mean, obviously, if there are things that need to get on here, other things could be done, again, earlier in the meeting, if people can make it, they show up. If not, it's televised. LTV does a good job of that. You can catch up on that later on. But I really want to make sure that when we get to the budget, everyone's up to speed. That's like the most important thing. I don't want to spend it on how much we should have gotten, what another town got. We pretty much know the numbers when the governor comes out with the budget. We pretty much know what the local contribution is going to be. And we also know that sometime in September, October, when the state passes their budget, we're going to be back here revisiting it. So I want to spend our time on where's the money going, how's it being spent, what are the priorities of the school committee, and hopefully they're the same priorities as the superintendent. And we can't achieve that when we have, one meeting in February, and then, then we're into March, and then we got snow days that might come up. And so I think this is, at least in my mind, the best way to attack it. And then anyone that's interested there are a bunch of committees here. If anybody's interested, just email me and what committees you might be.
I would rather make votes on those now since it's on the agenda.
And the policy subcommittee would be meeting at prior to our next school committee meeting. That would be the second meeting of the month, and that's when we would do policy, and we do have some things that we need to finish.
If you get me those areas, but I don't want, unless there's something pressing.
But it's
It
not, it
does.
wouldn't be part of the regular school committee, it would be, there's some policies that we need to adjust and finish.
And how important are they to finish?
Well, I would I guess I think policies are very important because that's what drives the foundation and the backbone. I'm not saying that that has to be part of the regular committee, but the subcommittee would meet prior, usually they meet the second meeting of the month, and that would be our second meeting of the month.
So can I also clarify, so say hypothetically, I'm interested in policy, I send you an email.
Mhm.
Am I sending an email to everyone so that everyone knows? And
Right,
if that
because-
case, are we then having a public meeting violation?
The chair puts the committees together. So if you're interested in a particular committee, then let me know what you are, and then I'll put them all together at the next meeting. I
So we're
will-
not working as a committee to vote on it?
Because that's
You're-
typically
No.
what we do.
I don't know when that started or where, but
Oh.
anybody who's interested in
You
a
can
committee, then let me know, and we'll put the committees together, so people will know exactly where everybody is, but we shouldn't be going back and forth on an email system in violation of the open
No,
meeting law.
exactly,
that's what
that
we're
was my
asking.
point.
Because there can't be a quorum, so.
But I'm not,
So-
and I'll be honest, I'm not filling these meetings up with things, everything's important, but we gotta prioritize what's really important as a school committee. What there is always things to know about, there are always things that you wanna know about, right? There are always things, new and information. What is the jurisdiction and the duties and powers of the school committee?
Well, one of it is
That's what I wanna
policy.
focus on.
And
So
one is
I'd like to
course.
make a
finance.
motion that we vote on the committees that are on the agenda.
I'll second
Because,
that.
because, for example, at the end, number 5, it says negotiations, secretary of unit B.
We need to know who's on the negotiation
Right,
committee.
we can't just get into a car, expect to turn the key, there's no engine.
Exactly, and I won't get in the car tonight and try to turn the key.
But it
with
says
no
over
engine.
here, negotiations, secretary of unit.
I didn't
So
put
we-
this agenda together, it's not my agenda, and, again, it's the way I've done it I haven't been chair for 4 years or whatever it's been. Prior to that, I've always done it the same way, it's how the city council does it. The chair puts the committees together.
Having been on the committee with you, you have always made assignments during this meeting, so
No, that's not correct, but
What are the
but
rules? What are the rules
the
say?
rules are that the chair puts together the committees.
Right.
And can create
that's
new,
what we're doing.
and can also create new committees. So if something comes up and you wanna put together a special committee on student achievement, it might not be one of these, but it's a special committee organized by the chair. Could be one on transportation because busing contracts come up. It could be any of those, but I'm not prepared to do that tonight, and we're not gonna sit here to find out what everybody's interested in doing. Let's find out, let me know what you're interested in doing.
Well,
And
there's currently a motion on the floor.
and a second.
That's fine, but I don't know how you can, all right, there's a motion and a second. All in favor signify in the usual manner that we're gonna vote on who's on these committees. Those opposed? Okay. Thank you, so we'll leave it at that.
But you're going to
Let me
let us
know.
know ahead of time so
Yes.
that we can have the committee meeting
Absolutely, you will know which
at
committees
the
are on.
appropriate time.
Correct. And so we keep things moving, we have 2 auditors in a temporary capacity, and we'll work all this out later on. But I really think one of the big responsibilities of the school committee is the budget and the finances.
I don't think
And-
anybody's disputing that.
And I sat through last year when $2.5 million was added to the school department budget, not spent in pensions, and it wasn't even discussed. I was sat here while money was transferred to the school department in a positive way, and we should have shared this with our citizens of the city and be transparent, and not a mention was made, it was glossed over. I wanna make sure that doesn't happen again. We have a responsibility, and that's how we're gonna handle it, because I think it's in the best interest of everybody. So, to start this off, we're all part of the finance committee.
Just to clarify, next meeting is the 25th,
18th.
18th,
18.
and what time does it start?
Seven.
Well, if people can make it earlier, I prefer to start earlier. If they can, if they can't, then we won't. But I'll put something out there saying, can you make it at 5:30? Can you make it at 6? Do we have a room picked out permanently for the
So
meetings?
Appleseeds we're redoing,
Okay,
so it will always be there.
because I was gonna suggest the emergency management, but parking can get a little tricky down there.
We're adding technology and a live feed to LATVs.
All right, good. So, we'll have all our meetings televised. They can be televised live.
Yes.
And that'd probably be the best way to handle it. So we're engaging when people are interested, and when they're not, it's on tape. They can watch it on demand at LTV. We can also tape these so that they can be played over at WLPZ, that's our local radio station. So again, it could be on 100 times a week, or it could be on like a podcast. So at any given time, people can't watch the meeting on Monday nights or whatever night it might be. So let's try to get it, get the information out, engage people, and then I think it's a good idea. We'll get the principals in and talk about what's going on in their budget. Again, budget season to me, at least in my experience, moves way too fast. And I'm more of I want to understand it. I want to understand every bit of it. And what I'd like to do is, again, it may take away from some of the other presentations that we've had, but it'll give us a better understanding of what's going on in the schools, what their priorities are, and then later we go through the exercise of deciding. The school committee has a major function in the budget. And I just want to make sure we understand it and that we respect it.
I do think that, I completely agree with you, Dean. I don't think anybody's disagreeing with you that the budget is really important and everybody needs to understand it. I do think that there are other information that we need to know that impacts our budget decisions. And so hopefully those won't get lost. So we can, monitor that.
Right, but I think it's a building process, that certain things happen at a certain time. And we have, let's face it, we almost have, by charter, the mayor is on the school committee. So you have 4 new, like half the members of the school committee are new. So I look at it as a very building, understanding what our responsibilities are, so that we're all in agreement on that. And it's a building block as we go. Are some of the presentations important? Yes, but we can decide that before we put together an agenda. And
So you're willing to take some input from the committee, or you're not?
I'll put the agenda together. That's what
So,
you did.
but I know, but
I
I asked for input. You, when you've given input, we've put your stuff on the agenda, so I'm asking if that's still that we can give some input, knowing that maybe not
Always.
everything,
Or
but
just like we do with the
usually
city
it's the will
council,
of the committee.
they will request me or the police department to come down to, get supporting information or clarification. Yeah, that's normal action. But I'm not gonna tie up the school. This is gonna be a priority for the school committee, is student achievement and finance. That's the 2 biggest things that we can do.
And so
And to
for-
focus on that, and not drift away from it. So at the end of the, now it's like, hey, it's May, we gotta, like the superintendent's evaluation. Hey, it's time we do an evaluation. That shouldn't be that way. It should be very orchestrated in a building process. So we get to the end, you have goals and objectives for the superintendent, goals and objectives from the school committee, and input from the public. As to, yeah, that's exactly what we want you to be doing. And again, we just had a report 2 meetings ago from somebody that's working with the school department, and we almost got to back up on that one to bring everybody up to speed as to where we're at. They certainly need to know the information.
Right.
And people that have been here for 2 years, a year and 51 months, weeks, making decisions on things that are going to affect everybody from here on.
I know, and I do think, having the information around student achievement is extremely important. So we need to be able to get that from the superintendent and her cabinet.
And that may be one of our subcommittees. We may eliminate some of them. That may be one of the subcommittees, is student achievement, meeting with the superintendent or cabinet, and keeping our eyes on what's going on. That's the end result here is, right, student achievement, right? Safety in our schools, student achievement. So I'm trying to oversimplify this, and I know it won't be oversimplified, but I'm trying to keep us focused so we don't drift away. I only want to do what our responsibility is. I don't want to be the superintendent, I don't want to be the finance person. I just want to keep to, in fact, what I'm thinking of doing is just doing a 4x8 sheet or a 4x4 that is behind us all the time during our school committee meetings, so everybody can understand. We have a conservation commission, people will show up with planning issues. And we try to hand something up saying, this is the conservation commission, this is our powers, jurisdiction, duties. And that
We
keeps
certainly can have
everybody focused.
a workshop by MASC for folks who aren't clear on, what the jurisdictions are and what our, goals are.
It's Mass General Law. It's Mass General Law, and we just need to know what it is. We need to share that with the voters and parents and teachers so that they understand what our responsibility. What is our responsibility under the American Rescue Plan? Do we have any say in where that money goes? Or are we just here for approvals?
Well, and I guess I just don't wanna lose sight of policy because that is under our purview and one of our main objectives.
Yeah, I didn't
So-
say we're doing anything with public. I just said tonight, I wasn't prepared to put together all of these subcommittees and then sit here and have 4 people that are new say, well, geez, I don't know, I'm not sure and I don't know enough about that. But now there's ample time, get to me, and I'll put that together and we'll sign committees and if for some reason, there's plenty of committees, so it's not like, everybody's gonna end up at least one committee, so there shouldn't be a problem. All right, anything else?
I would just say with the negotiation committee, folks need to be available, usually in the late afternoons, because it is something that meets after school, but not in the evenings. So, we need people who can, have the time and the flexibility to attend, and that's something major, because there are some contracts that are needing to be negotiated, so just to put that out there for the new members. It can be
Well,
time consuming at various.
I've been involved with
points in time.
negotiations for 28 years, and generally the way it works is you put times and dates out, and everybody sort of says, I can make this one until you reach a time and a date when everybody can make it. So it's not necessarily everybody's okay with it, and then you've gotta have school committee members make it or not. It's usually, hey, here are the dates, here's 5 dates, can you make any of them? If not, here's 5 more dates until you get to the point where everybody can make it. And I prefer to use that rather than, if you're not around at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you can't be on the negotiating.
Yeah, that's gonna be tough.
There's people here that
We all
work
Yeah, no,
full-time
of course,
jobs.
I work too, but
I
I'm just saying
understand.
that's typically, the way it works,
Right.
because we also have to accommodate the teaching staff, so.
Right, and that's why I say you put out the dates and times, and that's always the way I've always done it. And every other place that I've worked with does it, is send out, you have 5 dates, here's 5 more, and when you get dates, then those are the dates.
Have there been meetings at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon? 4 o'clock in the
Regularly.
afternoon?
Usually, that's how it works.
Okay,
But it doesn't, that's how it works here.
alright,
It doesn't, I've done negotiations for 28 years. We've met at 3 in the morning, we've met at 3 in the afternoon, we met at 10 at night, we met on Saturdays. It's a general email that goes out, and believe me, everybody finds a time that's agreeable to everybody. It works. So if you have grievances or whatever, again, it's, not everything is, school ends at 3, and so that, you have to be here at 3. It's everybody, right? It's getting a time and a date that's agreeable to everybody, and then move forward.
is that the only subcommittee that's like that?
I think so, to my knowledge. I've been on the athletic advisory for years, and sometimes we meet at 7:30 in the morning before work. Sometimes it's in the evening, or 7 o'clock, or
Alright.
whatever.
Alright, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? No other questions? All right, and then as we build, and there are no dumb questions, remember this team, we're gonna build and stick to what our core responsibilities are, and information is good, because we've gotta know what's going on. But this is the school committee. There are 9 members of the school committee. There aren't 15, there aren't 20, there are 9 members of the school committee. This is the school committee. And you can request information or certain departments within the school system to appear before the school committee. And again, line it up so that it's their time, it works for them and us. And we'll build. And as newly elected, you have items and issues that people talk to you along the way. And I want to be respectful of that, because there are things that people say, hey, Josh, people are going to get you, right? At your schools, at baseball and basketball and sporting events. And it's important to them, and it should be important to you. And we should have, discussions, around it. So we're not insulated from things that are just important, to us. All right, that was a lot in a little amount of time, but anything else, Superintendent?
We have
I
the
have
executive
an
session.
Executive session.
How critical is this? Is this an update or
Asking
strategy?
permission to engage.
to enter into negotiations?
Yes.
All right, you just need a vote.
Yep.
You don't need to go into executive
Okay.
session.
I'm looking for a vote to go into negotiations with Unit B. Those are our assistant principals, special education, and athletic director, and our secretary unit, which also includes our tech department.
I make a motion to enter negotiations for those units and
Second.
secretaries.
All right, so motion is second. Everybody understand that? What we're voting on tonight is just superintendent is requesting that the school committee go into and the administration go into negotiations with these unions. Are their contracts up?
Yes,
Okay, so the contracts are up, and so we begin negotiations with them. And typically, the way it would work is the superintendent would, and her staff would work, and with these groups and keep us updated. And in terms of strategy, might come back in executive session, and we might have a discussion on that. And then later, if necessary, at some particular point, maybe they settle it in one day, everybody's happy, but if not, and then there's a request made, by the committee, then, usually the first meetings are, ground
Ground rules,
rules. It's not too exciting, but at some point, we may, assign, somebody that's on the negotiating committee to start attending some of the meetings. And then we go from there, and then the school committee would obviously stay, in touch and stay part of the process, sometimes in executive session.
How often are we updated and how?
so I over-update you, as you probably can tell.
That's good.
Yeah, you at
Okay.
least get a memo on Fridays, and then when things happen throughout the week, just because, as Dean said, you will be confronted by people out in the public.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're gonna hear strange stuff, please let me know. It's usually a little bit, off, but I keep you updated quite often.
Okay,
And if you're talking specifically about negotiations, that's
Yeah.
things that we cannot share with the community.
right.
Yeah.
That's stuff that only stays here because that could compromise negotiations.
And that's why it's an executive session.
And that's why it's an executive
Okay.
session.
And remember, executive session has minutes, and what goes on in executive session eventually becomes public. And those minutes become public. So, for the time being, for strategy reasons, you want to be able to discuss those things in the executive session. But at the end of the day, those are then released under the open meeting law.
And generally, we have to agree on, obviously, any salary increases, because that impacts the budget, and other kinds of language that we may be trying to get something from them, and they're trying to get something from us, and those are things that we would discuss.
All right, so as soon as you want, you're comfortable, look over the list.
So there was did we vote? I think there was a motion and a second, did we do
All
a
right,
vote?
we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Second. All right, those opposed? All right, unanimously, and we'll move on with negotiations with those units. And then next was adjournment unless there was new old business. So who already attended the boot camp for new school committee members? All right, so did you find it helpful at all?
good. Yeah, it's good.
Good.
Good information.
And then hopefully the next session is February, March or
March,
something.
right?
Maybe we can get to it.
February and March. The March one, I think it's virtual, so it's 2 days instead of just the one.
Yeah.
I'd rather do the 1 day instead of doing 2 different days. It was nice to get it over and done with once instead of.
Do we have to sign up, or are you helping us sign up?
Yes, I think I signed you up.
Thank you very much.
Did you want me to sign?
Yeah, please. I
Okay.
can do it myself, I just
Yeah.
wasn't sure.
Yeah, I sent out an email, but maybe you didn't see it, so
Okay.
I'll sign you up.
All right,
What I'll do is tomorrow I'll send you the dates,
okay,
and then tell me which one you want, and then I'll sign you up.
all right, great, thank you.
Yeah, one is virtual and one was in
February is
person.
in person, March is virtual.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll do the March one,
March, okay.
I can tell you that already, thank you.
All right, anything else? If not,
There's a meeting January 7th with MASC. It's virtual.
Is that about the budgeting process?
Yeah.
I've
And I highly recommend
New folks going.
everyone.
It's virtual, yeah, like you said, it's like at noon, it's like 1
Yeah.
hour.
Like a luncheon.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
If you
They
send
do
me the stuff, I'll
notifications.
send it out to everybody.
Okay, because I thought,
I saw it.
Maybe they didn't get anything yet, cause they're not.
Yeah, if you're not registered, you don't get those
Right.
notifications, so.
I'll send it out tomorrow, tonight or tomorrow.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I've seen that, I saw exactly that, yeah, I was gonna attend that.
so remember now, we're all sworn in, so we have to abide by the open meeting law.
Right, can't just
And-
respond to everybody.
And also the conflict of interest, if you haven't looked at that, the clerk's office is gonna ask you to come in and sign on that. There's a test that you have to take. And, it's pretty straightforward. The biggest thing to remember, it's kind of like tax, if they can't get businesses sometimes, the government comes at you through tax evasion. And you gotta make sure you file proper disclosures. And that is, and I will tell you, if there's ever a question about anything, call the Ethics Commission and say, listen, this is where I'm at, and this is the circumstances. And can I have some guidance? They may not give you the specific answer, but what they might do is send you a bunch of things or refer you to certain places. So it'll let you know whether or not you should be voting on something. You $50 and under is all you can take for gifts. So if a fruit basket shows up at your house tomorrow and you look at this thing and say, yeah, but I'd march that right up to the senior center tomorrow morning if I was you. Go bring it to one of the schools and leave it off. Little thank you note, but hey, we can't take anything more than $50, but the fruit's gonna go bad, so I'm gonna march it up the street. Somebody wants to give you a ticket to a game or whatever, your best friend you've been going to the game with, the Red Sox game for all these years, they're more than $50. And
That's only if it's for your role as a school committee member, you can certainly go to the game with your
Right,
friends.
right, so.
I would check with ethics. If you start taking tickets, it's $50 or more, and I would definitely check, because the last thing you want is somebody
If
coming.
it's standing room only, I don't know. It's
And-
not the only thing you can get under
and-
$50.
Right.
Cossacks, you can go to the Cossacks.
And believe me, in ethics, everybody's tried everything. They
Yeah.
had written a check to their friend, and then the friend gives it back out. It doesn't work. This is.
No, you don't.
It isn't worth it. It isn't worth the aggravation, trust me. So what you're gonna put you through isn't worth it. And so anytime there's a question, our attorneys at Copeland and Page are well respected with ethics. And you can ask one of our attorneys if you'd like. They're in tune. In fact, ethics law officers say, did you talk to your attorney or whatever? You can speak to us.
And MASC certainly has an ethics board that you can talk to as well.
So that's all. In the meantime, congratulations, and
Thank you.
we look forward to everyone's ideas and thoughts, and
The other thing is with MASC, there's a listserv for MASC. And I recommend you guys get on it. You're gonna be inundated with information, but it's golden.
Yeah, I signed up for that. It's hard to follow though. I
Oh,
get like the
it-
daily.
Yeah, it's just.
they're all over the place.
I don't even know how to respond to it. I mean,
Sometimes you don't have, you
You
just
know,
read all the way down.
yeah.
There's
Yeah.
always some
pick
nuggets.
and choose.
And remember, the Mass Association of School Committee represents all. Well, we have different issues than Wellesley or Concord or Carlisle. We have much different issues than they do. And so sometimes, look at who is the representatives and the district representatives to see, and they have their own agenda, right?
Tracy Novak is our point person who represents us, and
Is she from Worcester?
yes,
Okay.
Yeah.
so she's obviously got an urban
Yeah.
filter lens.
All right, motion to adjourn. Any other questions? If not, motion to adjourn. No, we'll stay here all night.
I made a motion.
Oh, so you have the motion. So second,
Second.
all in favor? All right, congratulations.